Hey everybody, welcome. We are excited that you've chosen to join us for a little while today. We're talking budget friendly technical stuff.
Oh
We
yeah,
want to yeah, because everybody's likes some budget friendly. Nobody has just infinite amount of money to use, especially in ministry,
except
right?
Pastor Danny. Danny does have a lot of money. I know it.
That's the
Well,
right,
I
right.
usually do, but not right after Christmas. After Christmas, I'm looking for those deals.
Right, right.
Right.
So we're gonna do some budget-friendly shopping for your video, your lighting, your audio, and looking at different platforms, kind of your all-around setup. And I'm excited. This is a great thing because if you are struggling and you're not sure where to go, and maybe you haven't started streaming for your church yet, you're
Hello.
just lost in the whole thing. You don't have much of a budget. You feel like it's not attainable. We want to change your mind today. You can do it. It's super easy, super straightforward, and you don't need a lot of cash to make it happen.
Hmm.
So we're gonna kind of jump in here, and even though people are trickling in, some of you may be watching this at a later time on the archive, and that's great too.
Yeah, it's worth the
But
watch.
yeah, for sure. So we are going to kick it out. And Icky, he's got some options for your budget friendly video. Icky, what do you got for us?
Oh, absolutely. When it comes to being low budget, I am the master of that. So I'm glad you all are on here and looking for some cool equipment. So I'm going to talk about video capture devices and the cheapest ones you have. And I'm going to range from something that you probably already have in your pocket all the way to the most expensive thing I've got here is, well, with caveat, about $600. And I've seen it as low as 400. So let's just go ahead and take a quick peek behind me here. And I wanted to show you what we've got. If you're looking over here, let me see if I can get this for you. If you're looking over here, you're gonna see my phone, and this is probably your best bet. This guy is something you already have. Granted, they vary in prices. So if you've got a high end iPhone or Samsung, obviously it's going to cost you 1,000 and up. But you already have this, and you can use this easily as your capture device. Now, just a reminder, the cameras on the back are always going to be much better quality than your front cameras. So even though you like to do selfies and it's easier to see yourself, you want to, if you can, use the back camera. There are workarounds obviously for this so that you can see the front of the picture monitoring what you're watching. But this camera is always going to be better than the front camera. So this one technically, even though it's not free, is cheap because you probably already own this one. The other one that you probably already own is the computer behind me. If you have a laptop, obviously those already come with a webcam. You've got your webcam and you've got direct connection to the platforms you're going to use as long as you have Wi-Fi or you have some kind of land ground connection to it, and then you're on the go. Now, these cameras on the laptops, they're not the best quality. So, just be aware of that. And if you're using an iPhone or a Samsung or some kind of phone device as your camera, just remember that what you can do is up here if you're looking here, right here, you'll see that I've got a little stand. If you purchase one of these stands from Amazon, it'll cost you about $20, maybe 19 bucks. Then you can use it to stand, and it'll be still getting a good picture. Okay, so that's your computer. But you can also do webcams. Webcams are great. You can get a 1080p, which is high def, and it's got a clear, crisp look. You can find one on Amazon for about $35, anywhere from 30 to 40 bucks. I mean, that's an incredible deal for HDMI, for a clear 1080p picture that you can get from one of these bad boys. Obviously, you're going to have to connect it to something, most likely your computer, and then you'll be able to stream with this guy for about 40 bucks. Not bad. Then we move on. If you're still looking for something that is in the affordable range, but that is more of a camera feel and you could use for more things that is dedicated to actual video or photo. I would suggest the Lumix G7 Panasonic. It's a 4K, and the 4K is really really nice. It's I mean, who can get 4K for $500 right now? It's going for almost 600, but you can find this body, this particular Lumix, for as low as $400 at times. All right, so just to give you a heads up. Now remember, you also got to buy a lens, and depending on the kind of lens you have, it could be anywhere from 100 to 200 to $300. But this is the camera that you can go to, and it's about $400 to $500, and you've got a great picture device. I mean, you're not going to beat that. So those are your deals. Number one, your phone. Number two, your computer. Number three, a webcam. And finally, of course, the Lumix. So you'll have all these options before you. If you wanna, if you need any suggestions, hit us up, and we'll make sure we'll get those to you sometime this week. All right, and that's all I got for you.
Great. Thanks, Icky. And of course, if you've got a video, you also want to look at your lighting. And so I want to talk to you real quick about lighting. Most lighting guides are going to tell you that you have 3 lights that are necessary for the most part. You can trim it all the way down to 1 if you need to. 3 is kind of the best kind of a setup. The first is a key light, and the key light provides the brightest light. It comes at a 45-degree angle, and so my key light is right here. You can see me shadow my face. It's right there, and it provides the most light. And then you have a fill light, and my fill light is actually coming through here. I'm going to talk about it in a second. And then you have a backlight, and I'm not technically using a backlight, even though my background is lit. It's not kind of lighting it up. But there are a few really easy ways to make it look nice. And the first is you can literally just use a window. For instance, right now, my fill light is the front window in my home. And so you can just allow the natural light. It provides a great, well-rounded daylight feel. And that's my fill light. And you always want to keep that light bright. I have a background light, but and it feels pretty natural. You don't want it to be too bright. Don't want it to be brighter and create kind of a silhouette. So you can always just film in front of a window. Daylight is free, though it does change. So keep in mind when you might be filming it versus when you set everything up. Lighting changes as the sun moves, and so you'll want to keep an eye out for that. Another really cheap lighting budget, there's a few different brands. My personal favorite in experience has been a brand called Neewer. It's like newer with an extra E in the middle, Neewer, and I think that's probably how you spell it. I don't know for sure. But I love their lights because for about $160 on Amazon, you can literally get a 2-pack. And then you can either use them plugged in, or you can switch them over to battery power. And they have 2 different lights in them, two different sets of LEDs. When you're talking lighting, you're talking warm light and cool light. So warm light is, they rate it by Kelvin down to about 2400 Kelvin or so. And that's a really yellow light. This behind me is a very warm light. Cool light goes up to about 6,000 typically. Daylight is rated at 4,000 to 5,000 depending on who you talk to and what brand you're looking at. So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to grab it here. I'm going to take it right off here. This is my primary light, and it is a Neewer. You can see that, and it has a knob for this is a knob for my warm light and a knob for my cool light. So I can actually take my lighting, and I can say, okay, I'd like to have a cooler light, and I can just turn that up and get a much whiter light. It's a lot, or say, okay, Tim, you're pasty anyway, so let's warm it up, and I can provide a much warmer light. And whatever you can do to kind of provide some natural light, I highly recommend. The backlight, Linda, I see your comment. Yeah, the backlight is going to come from about a 45-degree angle, way up high. It's kind of going to light up the back of your head right about here a little bit. You want it to be the softest of the three lights by far. It can help to provide the feel that there's something glowing in the background, that kind of a thing. It helps separate the foreground from the background. And so that's how you use your lights. And you can literally just play around. If you just have daylight, you can do that. Like, it will work. Just center your view on your window a little more. Or you can look to balance it out a little bit further. Play around with the lights. But the Neewer light is a great one because it's portable, it's battery powered, like you saw on mine there. So I recommend it. There's other bigger lights you can also get from Neewer. You can get one of these that comes, I'm just going to turn that off so you can see it a little better, that comes with a big soft box on it that you'll put on, and that will disperse and soften the light even further. And so that can be helpful as well. But that's going to run you, a few $50 more or so. So those are kind of your options as far as lighting goes. And let's spin over to some budget options for audio. Is that where we're at? Oh. A little technical difficulties. Danny, are you muted on your end?
And there we go. Thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate getting some of those suggestions on lighting. COVID has forced us to become experts in things that we never dreamed. And so here we are trying to figure out how to stream and what's the best way to do that so that we can connect digitally and provide content and care with all of our audiences. I want to talk to you about audio really quickly. I have two things to recommend. As we're considering what's the best way to communicate digitally, there's an axiom that we need to remember that says you will never look better than what you sound like. I'll say it again. You will never look better than what you sound like. What this means is that no matter how good your image quality is on the screen, if you don't have good audio, it will not look great. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but that's the way it is. In fact, if you had to choose between good lighting or a great camera and great image quality and great sounding audio, always choose to go with great sounding audio because your audience will tolerate a mediocre picture if you have great audio, but they will not tolerate mediocre audio if you have a great image quality. So that's why audio is really, really important. And the best way to improve audio is to record it through a microphone. Now, it's true your iPhone or your laptop or even a high-end camera has a microphone built in, but those microphones are not very good, and they're very likely to pick up a lot of ambient sound, and it's going to pick up echo and reverb, and it's just not going to give you the best option. The first option that you should look at is consider using the microphone that came with your phone. This is the bare minimum that you should be doing. Yes, your computer has a microphone, but this is going to give you way better audio. The next level up that I would recommend to you is a device called the Rode Smart Lab. And I'm going to see if I can get an image here for you. The company is called Rode, and they make a lavalier mic that connects directly into an iPhone or an Android device. And of course, it connects to your computer. Now, you may find some options out there that are a little bit more cost effective. You may find like a $20 or a $30 lavalier, but it may not have the connector that you need to plug straight into your computer or into your phone if you're using a phone to record. So that's why Rode developed a lavalier mic that's around $80, less than $80, and it connects directly into your smartphone or your computer or even your camera, and it'll record directly, and it'll give you some really, really good audio. So remember, the Rode Smart Lav Plus is a great middle of the road kind of option that has the right connector. It's a mini jack that goes into your computer or your smartphone, and sometimes it needs a little tiny adapter that kind of looks like this. On my phone, you would need an adapter that looks like this to go into the phone, but it has the necessary connections to make sure that you're going to have a good connection, a good recording feed into your recording device. The next item that I would recommend, $80 I think is a worthy investment, especially if you're recording from home or if you're recording into your computer or your phone. But if you want to take it one step further, I would recommend using a device that's called the iRig Pre. And actually, I'm not actually recording through this device. I'm using this to listen to what the recording is. I'm actually using a lav mic. It's an Audio-Technica lavalier that has a transmitter, and this transmits to a receiver. And this receiver pack is similar to what many of us use in church settings, in worship services. And the problem with these mics is that they have an XLR connection, and most computers don't have an XLR connection. But what this device, which is called the iRig Pre, let's see if I could show it to you right here. This little box, what it does is it allows you to connect an XLR microphone. So basically, you could take any microphone from that you might use in a worship service that has an XLR out. It plugs into this iRig Pre, and what this does, it gives you some volume controls. It also gives you a mini jack to monitor what the sound looks like, and most importantly, it has an input that goes straight into your computer or to your smartphone or to a camera, and that allows you to use whatever mic you may be using that might be available at church that has an XLR. It goes straight into this iRig Pre, which is about $39. Okay, plus tax, a little bit more. $39. You can use any mic that you might have laying around at the church. You plug it into this, and then this line goes straight into your computer or to your smartphone, and you can record high quality audio with something that might be sitting around collecting dust in your church. Again, you will never look better than what you sound like. Truly, truly try to, if you want to improve your digital stream, make sure that you try to improve your audio so that when the audience is listening, they can connect with you in a really, really, really good way. If you have any questions about this, keep those questions coming. We're going to get to them a little bit later. And if you're watching this broadcast later, we're going to be checking those comments and posting responses to any questions that you might have.
So we've talked so far about video. We've talked about how to have a great picture on your stream. We've talked about lighting, how to make sure that you look the best you can look on your video. We've talked about audio, how to sound the best that you can sound. When we put all of these elements together, the last question that comes up is, where am I going to put my stream? Right? You have a great video, you have some great audio, but what's the bridge between you and your audience? So we just want to talk about a couple different options for platforms that are effective, that are free, that are easy. And of course, they're pretty familiar to you. The two main ones are Facebook Live and YouTube Live. These are some pretty easy platforms, but when you think about it, you're probably already familiar with Facebook and you're probably already familiar with YouTube. But the tips that we want to give you are following kind of a different train of thought. So I want you to think about it like this. It's not about what platform you use necessarily. Well, we do have these recommendations, but it's also possible to think about how you're using the platforms, right? It's not just about which platform, but it's also about how you're using the platform. So we want to give you a couple tips in that area. So we have a graphic that we want to put up. So we're going to talk about a couple different guidelines. So we're talking mostly about Facebook and YouTube Live, right? So keep that in mind. So if you're streaming your church service or different programs, different content for your church, on the left side, you'll see some recommendations for what you want to do, where you want to go with this, right? So a Facebook page, your YouTube page, or your church website are going to be the top recommendations. The reason for this is because these can archive your videos. It can give a great place for people to go back, look at your content later. It's very user-friendly. These platforms are also public, so they don't have barriers to people wanting to join. So if somebody's a visitor, maybe not super plugged in with your congregation, but they want to be able to engage with your content, these platforms are public, super accessible to anybody who's going to want to connect with you. The last reason that these platforms are recommended is because they're branded. When you set them up in a really strategic way, you'll see that these platforms give you the option to really promote your brand of your church. And that helps you to be credible. It helps people to really connect with you and see who you are as an organization. That flows into the next point. So if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see some of the things not to do. So when we're talking about streaming, Zoom can be used. We'll talk about that in just a second, but sometimes Zoom for maybe a church service can be a little bit exclusive. It's a little bit hard for people who are visitors or not connected with your congregation to be able to engage with you and join in. So when you're thinking about public streaming services, Facebook and YouTube Live are going to be your main platforms. Then again, on the second point on the right-hand side, you'll see even though you might want to use Facebook or YouTube, a personal profile is not going to be the way to go. Sometimes we might go on Facebook and just click live and we'll get our video stream out there, but sometimes that might go to our personal profile, which brings up some of those barriers again. People might want to join who are trying to find your organization, but a simple search won't lead them to your personal profile. So the content will be kind of disconnected in that way. So when you think about it, the number one thing is how you're using these platforms to drive home relevant content that's credible, that shows who your organization is. So when you think about Facebook and YouTube, they share some main principles. I'm just going to outline a couple in this brief overview, and later in a second stream or in a different event, we can give you some more information about setting up your YouTube channel, maybe give you a tutorial, walkthrough, step-by-step for creating a YouTube channel. We know that that has been requested. Possibly creating a Facebook page that's really credible and relevant as well. So we can give you some more specific tips later. But for now, a couple of things to remember. When you're creating one of these pages on behalf of your church, you want to make sure that the organization name is clear. We want to make sure that people can see who you are. The brand is there, your logo is there. In the About Us, you have your mission. You have all of these things that represent who you are. And if you're on YouTube, for example, when you have all of these streams and when you've had some church services that are accumulating on your page, you can create some different playlists, organize these pieces of content in a way that are really easy to remember. Those are just a couple of tips, just keeping your page created in a really strategic way. But another thing to think about when we're talking about platforms, how you're streaming, how you're engaging with people, it's not just about clicking record or going live. It's not just about that. Your content will be out there. Your video may look great. Your audio may sound great. But a third element that's always important to remember is how you're engaging with your audience. Whether you're on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, you want to make sure that you're doing some of the tips that we talked about in our last live stream training on December 8th, where you're talking about how you can engage with people in the comments, how you can create content that's just for them, how you can think about your online audience, not just as a supplemental audience off to the side, but your online audience really is your primary audience. So how you can meet the needs that they have through these platforms. So we'll give you a little bit more detail into all of these things in future live streams. And just to kind of get you a little bit interested in what we'll talk about, I mentioned how we can use Zoom for live streaming so that it's a little bit more accessible. You can hook up Zoom to Facebook or some other platform, and you can have your stream go straight there through Zoom by connecting people from different locations. So there are ways to do that. We can go a little bit more into that later. There are some more robust and advanced platforms like Ecamm Live or OBS that allow you to do a lot more than just simple Facebook Live or YouTube Live. That being said, if you're getting started, Facebook and YouTube Live are a great way to go. And we'll go into that a little bit more in the future, how to get those set up and get you going. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and add to the comments below, and we look forward to helping you out.
Awesome.
Tim's muted.
There we go.
Hey, Tim.
Awesome.
All
We
right, some
got that.
technical difficulties. Thank you, Lauren. We've gotten some good questions and a couple of comments, and let's kind of respond to some of these a little bit, and then we can find, if as you were listening to one another, as we were hearing one another, maybe there's various things. Everyone in this panel kind of has different experience with various lights and various audio, various platforms. And we can kind of comment and answer some questions as we go along here. Um, and Linda commented that she hasn't figured out how to do backlighting. You guys have any tips that you've noticed on backlighting?
I would say that one of the biggest challenges with backlighting is that the light is too low, and so what ends up happening is it goes straight into the camera lens, and then it provides glare. I wonder if that's what you're experiencing, Linda. Backlighting is really good if it's high. If it's high enough that it's not going to interfere with the lens, that's a really, really good way to backlight something if you put the light high enough.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
want a lot of bleed from that particular light. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you into my layer here, so you can see how
Ooh,
ugly
we're going
everything
behind
looks.
the curtain
I'm going.
now.
I'm pulling the curtain
Ooh.
back. So Lynn, this is just for you. So for me, if you can look up there, that's my overhead light, and obviously I'm right here, so it's like at the top of my ceiling, shooting down. But
Mm-hmm.
I built this like DIY out of cardboard box, um, little barn doors for it, so that the light comes straight down. I actually built it for Lauren because Lauren had asked for it for the lighting, so that helps straight up there. It's more direct right above this area, and yeah, so that's what we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, it
The
looks
goal is
great.
really to separate from the background, to let the whatever object or person that you want it to be focused on pop a
Yeah.
little bit out from the background.
And what
So
Yeah,
I
that's
awesome.
like
why those.
about that, Icky, is that it's not too bright. It's just barely there, right? That's another problem people have is the backlight is way too bright, and it just kind of ruins the whole. It kind of takes over. So it should be just a little brighter than normal, but not too overpowering. What were you saying, Lauren?
Oh, I was just going to say part of the reason that those barn doors were really helpful is because before we put those on, the light was really bleeding. And so that means that the light was really sort of over the entire room almost. And so it's important to make sure that the light is as directed to you on your head or on your shoulders as possible, or else it won't really have that concentrated effect.
And just to add there, Linda, I noticed she had commented, maybe some people were doing this, that you did your lighting from the bottom up, your backlighting. So the tricky thing about lighting from the bottom up, Linda, is that people's eyes aren't used to that. Most of our eyes are used to sunlight, which comes directed downwards towards us. So casting shadows upwards looks kind of weird. We're just not acclimated to see shadows that are shot from bottom up. Although you can put a backlight on you that's like maybe directly behind you or just below you and shoot this way, it gives a bit of a flare, which is nice, but you have to do it right. So I do that at times, but if you're just getting into backlighting, I would suggest, just like everyone else is saying here, making sure it's directed from above you at an angle, just from behind. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say this too, like, because I film in front of a television a lot, because if you're showing slides or things like that, as a pastor, I'm like, I need to speak to my visual people a little bit too. And another tip for your lighting, the backlight helps separate you from your TV. And then you really want to drop the brightness. I learned, believe it or not, you want to drop the brightness on your TV down to like 10%. You want to drop it almost out. You're going to look at it with your bare eyes and you won't be able to see it really well. But the camera is going to pick it up really clearly. and it's going to help it so that your camera isn't fighting against the light your TV is producing versus the lights that are shining on you. So if there are some technical things like that to play with. If you're filming in front of a TV or any kind of screen, drop the brightness on that screen way down to about 10%. It's going to be a lot clearer.
Here's a question
Uh,
for Danny, Tim.
Yeah, I
Danny
saw that
covered audio
question.
from Jocelyn.
So thank you so much for joining us. If you're just joining us, we did go through a couple of affordable microphone options. We're gonna have those down in the link. And once this broadcast is done, feel free to go back and watch it because we'll be able to you'll be able to rewatch it and just take some notes. But I did mention, there's a $70 option that you can use. And then there's another option that will allow you to use a mic that you might already be available at the church or somewhere else. So rewatch, and then down below in the comments, we're going to put some links as to where you can actually buy these items. So check out. So be patient with us, and we'll put those down in the description.
we also have Danny. Do you have any experience with using either of your devices that you were highlighting there for music by any chance? For I assume it would work pretty well depending on what microphone you attached, like uh, to either way. But
Yeah, so iRig, and so this is the device that I was one of the devices I was mentioning. The iRig Pre allows you to input an XLR source into it. So if you have let's say a keyboard, or if you have an interface that takes multiple inputs, and you have one XLR out, it would allow you to record it directly to your computer or to a smartphone or to a laptop, an iPad or something like that. I think that would work. Also, iRig also makes a device that's specifically for guitars. So it has a preamp for guitars and other instruments, so that you can kind of mess with the gain on those. And so that's pretty affordable as well. And there's a couple other options on their website for other instruments.
Um, Tim,
yeah,
sorry, I just wanted to just keep an eye on the feed for us here. There was a question from Pastor Sal, and he asked, I would like to ask if there is a collection of archived songs that are not copyrighted from our church musicians that can be accessed, even at a monthly fee to use for live streams.
that's a great question.
That's a good question, Sal.
Yeah, uh, so I am not aware of any. I don't by the denomination. I don't know if you guys are. I know Life Church shares all their musicians and music videos, but those for many of our churches might not be the greatest fit. I know another idea would be maybe the
I think we lost Tim's feed. Does anybody
Lost
hear
your
Tim?
audio.
Tim, we lost your audio. While Tim is working on his audio to get that back up, I Sal, I don't like Tim was saying, we don't know that there is one exactly. However, some suggestions would be look for public source or open source hymns and songs. Those, if they're open, you don't need copyright um, to use those. Another thing you can do is maybe look on Igniter Media and or get the CCLI license, where if you use that, then you can use a bank of Christian music that they have, and it would be available for you to use on your site. However, I do have to mention, if you're going to use it on Facebook and YouTube, because they're such massive entities, they have their own copyright rules and laws. So you have to make sure that you check in with them as well, because you could have a CCLI and then Facebook can still shut you down through their algorithm, or YouTube just the same. Tim, are
This
you
sounds like
back
a
on with us?
really this sounds like a really good topic, that can, it could take an entire episode. So keep checking back with us. I think these are the kinds of questions that we'd like to answer and develop more content for. So thank you, Sal, for asking that question. We may revisit it in the future.
Yeah, I was saying when my AirPods died that other than you should really charge them probably more regularly than I do, I'm saying that I think Life Church shares some of their music, but that might be too much for many of our churches. Might not be a good style fit. But another idea is if you see another church, we're a sisterhood of churches, and you see another church and you're like, wow, I really enjoyed that worship experience. And reach out to that pastor, reach out to that church, say, hey, could we use some of the stuff that you put out? And I'm sure once they ask their musicians that they'd love to share it, and love for you to use it as well. It's a way that we can support one another, that I think would be a neat thing to see happen. So great. Well, you guys, thank you so much for your time. Next week, same time, same channel. And we are going to be diving in to Sal. We're actually going to jump into your topic. We're going to figure out and show you how it is you set up your own YouTube channel, how it is that you look at various uh, nuances of that platform. How do you set it up? How do you regularly go live versus uploading pre-constructed materials? How you schedule things? How you build up your viewing audience? How you interact with your viewers? All of that kind of stuff. We're going to give you some ideas, and that's what we're going to kind of dive into. So if you learn some things here, you can grab some of the tech that we've talked about, and next week you're going to be all ready to set up that YouTube channel, and you'll be off to the races. We'll be good to go. You guys, any last words?
Good luck.
Hey, thanks everyone. Share this with somebody if it's helpful, if you think other ministry leaders can be blessed by this. And we're going to hopefully provide very useful information to help you grow your ministry.
And if there's things
Absolutely.
that you wanna learn about or things that you're curious about, please comment or send us a shout out to the communications department. Email Lauren, let her know. And as we go on with our future episodes, we'll cover absolutely everything that you might have questions about, from the smallest to the greatest details that you need.
Absolutely.
Thanks for
So with
tuning in,
that,
everyone.
Bye bye.
have a good one.